Hi, Toni. Thank you for joining us and agreeing to tell us your story. Should be fairly painless. We just want to hear about you and share your story with the community here
Okay,
in Fort Lupton.
Thank you for inviting.
Of course. So let's start with your birth date and tell us when you were born and where you were born and when you came to Fort Lupton.
Okay, I was born on March 7th, 1944, when the Second World War was going on. I was born in Laredo, Texas, and what else?
When did you move to Fort Lupton?
Okay, because we were migrant farm workers, we came to Colorado in about 1950. And then we traveled on. So we came, it started in about 1950 to about 1956. One of my sisters was born in the labor camp, and but we kept on going. But we came back in about 1960, and that's when we stopped, we kind of stopped the migrant stream, but we still, in about 1965, we settled in Fort Lupton and didn't go back to Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with your parents, obviously, when you first moved, right?
With our parents, yes.
Yes, yeah. And so you were migrant farm workers, your family, including yourself?
Yes.
Yeah.
We were Hispanic American migrant farm workers.
Oh, okay. Important things to know, right?
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about your family. Tell me about your parents and a little bit about that.
Well, like I said, I was born in Laredo. There's 3 kids older than me. I'm the 4th one on the family. And there's the rest of the tail after me. There's 12 of us.
Oh, wow.
And so as we're traveling, there's kids being added to the travel. We would start in Laredo at about maybe April, May, end of March maybe, April, May. And then we would start traveling. Actually, my parents started traveling in 1942. And that's when they started asking for migrant farm workers to Ohio. And so as they traveled by train because they didn't have the whole system set up, I guess. So they took them by train to Ohio, and then they traveled from there, working the fields, tomatoes, cucumbers, cherry, different states.
Oh.
And so I was born in the migrant stream when I was born 2 years later. And my parents were young, and my mom and dad were English speakers. They didn't really speak that good English, but according to the group, to the camp, they were the ones that spoke English. So they were the interpreters and the writers and those kinds of things. They were very important.
Translators. What about your family, your children? Let's talk a little bit about
I
that.
got married in 1964, and I started to have kids right away. I had 4 daughters that are 11 months apart, and then 16 years later, I had a son, which is the love of my life. But not only me, my daughters ended up being, he has 5 moms. On Mother's Day, he gets us all a gift.
That's sweet.
It's usually a tomato plant. So I have 5 kids. By then, we weren't really traveling. We did go, I did work out in the fields. We were still working out in the fields during the summer. It was hard in the winter because there wasn't much work, but we didn't leave. We stayed in the area. Lived in different places here in town. Out on Cemetery Road, Road 12, there was a little gas station. It was called Martin Bay. So behind it, there was 2 little houses, and we lived there. My daughter, who was born in 1965, second to the oldest, was born when we lived there. My oldest daughter was born in Pearsall, Texas, and then my other daughter was born in Denver, and then my youngest daughter was born in Pearsall as well, delivered by the same midwife that delivered my husband and his dad.
Okay.
So there's a tradition.
Yeah.
And then my son was born in Brighton in 1983.
What about school? Did you attend school here in Fort Lupton?
No.
No.
No, we did attend migrant school. Sometimes in some places, Colorado was one of them, who had migrant school. When we lived in Prospect, because we also lived in Prospect Valley, they had a good migrant school, and so we would go there. They would send us there, but because we had to work in the fields, we didn't go, that often. But nevertheless, there was some type of education being offered. And again, not too many states had it. Later in the years, we noticed that, there was a lot more educational programs being offered to migrant kids. But in the meantime, it was hard to go to school in those days, especially out east in Ohio, Wisconsin, and those areas. There was a lot of prejudice. There was a lot of, you sit on one side and the other kids can sit and don't talk to them, and so it was hard. Yeah. But it is what it is, and it was what it was. We learned a lot from that. In Tennessee, when we went to pick cotton in Tennessee, there was blacks only and whites only. And the blacks didn't let us go to their bathrooms, and the whites didn't let us go to the bathrooms or restaurants or anything, the stores. We could go into a grocery store and buy things, but we had to take it out, and whatever we did, we had to eat in the truck, in the el troquero, which is what they were called. They were called the troqueros. And so that's kind of the way it was. And a lot of people will say, well, what did you do? Well, you had to wait till you got home to do your business, But you know what? It's interesting because I felt like we respected that. We respected that it was blacks only and whites only, and we were nowhere. But it was okay because we had our own means of surviving. We had our own means, our own ways of doing things as well. So we were all different, but we were all the same because we were all people.
Yeah. It's a very positive outlook.
You really didn't have a choice.
Yeah. Yeah. You go with the flow sometimes.
Yeah.
So. Tell me about your career. Were you at the school or?
Well, let's see, my youngest daughter is 68. In about 1970, they started a clinic, the Salute Clinic here in town, and they were hiring migrant farm workers to intermingle with the migrants that were still traveling back and forth. We lived in the labor camp. We still had the small labor camp in El Campo Grande, we called it. So we lived in El Campo Grande. And they offered me a job because I was bilingual, so they offered me a job. And so I got that job, and I used to think, wow, I know what I'm doing. I I didn't know I could work in a place without wearing pants and and coming home so dirty and oh my goodness, it was such a thrill. And so yeah, I started at the clinic, and it was after that I worked for the Colorado Migrant Council when we had the Migrant Council, and I worked in a lot of those little places that were migrant oriented, and so it was good. It was good, but my married life was not exactly. My husband was so jealous that it's like, for me to go to work, but to him was like going to a bar, I think, because he used to think that I was out there, doing things that I would never even think of doing. But so it was a struggle. It was a cultural struggle.
Yeah. I know that you received 9 Who Care awards.
Yeah.
Was it because of your migrant? Tell me more about that.
Well, more because I had been in the community helping out. And then there was a group from Denver, St. Vincent de Paul, that used to bring Christmas baskets and help people out. And so somehow we got together, and I became their representative for the migrants. And I started writing down names and helping out long days, sometimes into the nights. And so they just felt that I could do that. It was a beautiful thing because it was a recognition, but I was just so like, I don't deserve this. I mean, I do this just because you do this. You don't have to be recognized. But yeah, so I did get that.
Yeah, we should all be a little humble, right? Tell me some of your favorite memories of Fort Lupton, your time here, or just memories of the town, watching it
Memories
grow.
before I was married was boyfriends and dances. And I noticed that they have the big building. They had the dances there. One of the memories that I always have in coming through Lupton is that they had, in that big building, they would welcome the migrants. And they gave us breakfast. And they cooked and gave us breakfast. I remember Helen Bachicha. I don't know if she's still here. But she was one of the helpers that helped with the migrant meals that they had. I used to think that was such a good thing for people to do, And then working in canning, worked in the canning company for every summer for a long time. Getting some good friends, making some good friends. As a matter of fact, even now sometimes I see some of the women where we all worked at the canning company and remember this and remember that. And yeah, I remember one time doing the canning, and they would come and take your place so that you could go on break to go to the bathroom. So I went to I took the break and I went to the bathroom and came back, and it's like, well, I didn't have to go to the bathroom. And then I come back and I called her and I said, I really need to go to the bathroom now. But I just gave you a break. And so we think about that now, and it's like, it was a funny thing back then. But it was, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really, and it brought in good money, not, compared to. But it was long hours. It was very, very long hours. Sometimes we wouldn't get out till 10 o'clock at night. Sometimes we were out at 2. So, it was, you just never knew. What other memories do I have about Fort Lupton? Just walking the streets on Saturdays and it was so busy. It was so pretty, you know, it was friendly. Um, they had the tomato factory by the railroad tracks, and my sister, my oldest sister, worked that. She's 10 years older than I am. So she worked on that one. So those are some of the memories that we had crossing the tracks, because on that other side was the labor camp. On this side were all the houses and all the people. Back then there wasn't too many buildings. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those are good memories.
Yeah. What kind of hobbies and things do you like to do?
Oh my goodness. I have so many. Right now I'm doing, let me see if I have one here. I'm doing this for my kids, but I'm giving them away to everybody, and so I'm not being able to collect them too much. What's in there? Touch it.
A cross?
A cross. And you know what? I tell them, I said, you know what, May? When you go get into trouble, you get the cross and you say, help me, Jesus. And when all of it is well and there's the good things that are happening, you say, thank you, Jesus. So this is one of my things that I'm doing. I'm doing, I almost, because for some reason I always think I'm going to die soon. My family has not lived over 83. I'm 81 right now. So I tell them, enjoy me. 2 more years. And so I'm doing things so that they can remember me by, you know, writing some of the things and some of the things that I don't want to write, you know, just thinking, okay, they'll never know about that, thank you, God. But, you know, so those are some of my hobbies. My hobbies have been, you know, another thing that I like to do is I sit outside in the summer. I have a canopy. And I sit, and people come, and they stop, and they talk to me, and then they leave. Sometimes somebody else comes, and they talk, and it's a good hobby, I think.
It's a great hobby. Yeah. So, Toni, how would you like to be remembered by your family, within the community? But I think family is very important. How do you want them to remember
I
you?
want them to remember me as an encourager. That I encourage not only them, but other people, you know. And I would like for them to remember me as a person who regañarlas, my kids. My mom, like 2 weeks before she passed, she gave me a good regañada. It had to do with my kids. I don't know. I told something to my oldest daughter, and my mom turns around and says, why are you telling her that? You know, all this in Spanish. And so she told me, me regañó. And my Lydia goes, Mom, Wela regañar you. And I said, yeah, and remember that, because I'm going to do it to you guys. I don't care how old you are. And I don't care how old my grandkids are. I'm going to tell them. And if you remember it as a regañada, so be it. But remember it, because someday your day will come. Right now it's my turn. Yesterday was my mom's. Tomorrow will be yours.
What a sweet thought. Is there anything else you'd like to share with me and the community and your family?
I would like for Fort Lupton to remember, whoever would listen, to remember our past. The labor camp was a blessing because other places did not have labor camps. We had to live next to the pigs or next to the horses or in shacks and all that. The labor camp, although people saw it as a negative, we saw it as a positive because it had little cabins and it had a bathroom. My goodness. It was in a big building, but nevertheless, it was a bathroom. It was a community bathroom. It had a laundry room.
Wow.
Oh, I know. That was big. So Fort Lupton was, when we would get to Lupton, it would be a good thing. It was never a bad thing because we had, and you know what? They charged $8 a week to live in those little cabins. And sometimes we had a hard time coming up with $8 a week. But it was, I would like for people, not only my kids, but for everybody to remember that although, there were differences, and there were differences, not only in the schools, but all over, we still were able to work together, and this was a blessing to us. I would also like for them and anybody who sees this to remember that we had marches, and we were fighting for better housing, better education, and police brutality. We were fighting for, so, and that got accomplished. And it wasn't easy, and we were very judged by that. But it was well worth it. Everything that we did, we were able to get the Fort Lupton housing. Look at what, and there now, even for senior citizens, which we didn't have before. And the housing authority got homes for the low-income families. We had a bilingual program. We had a great bilingual program in Fort Lupton. We used to get some of the people from other countries to come see. We had the Japanese, and we had Governor Romer and Mrs. Romer come to see, check out our bilingual program. We had a great bilingual program, which is gone now. But we fought for those things, and we got them. And I want people to remember that. And although some people see it as a negative, to us it wasn't. We accomplished a lot. And so, and every day, my daughters work at the middle school now. So I worked for the schools for 25 years as a liaison. And I worked in different places, but now my daughters has taken the place. And I always tell them, remember those things, remember where we came from. Never allow anybody to put you down because of where you come from or where your parents came from. My grandkids, be proud, because I really believe that although we didn't know it back then, we who came from because we came from Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, California, to work the fields. We were the backbone of the country. We were not dirt. Because we did it, because we worked, I felt like we had taken the place of a lot of this, I'm going to say it, Anglo kids, so that they could be educated, so that they could be doctors, lawyers, and whatever else they were. But we took their place in the fields so that they could go and do what benefited everybody, including ourselves. We didn't have a chance or an opportunity to educate ourselves. And I guess at the time it was a choice, but we didn't know we had a choice. So we went from place to place, working, thinking. The mentality was, this is all you're going to do the rest of your life. Thank you, God, that it didn't turn out that way. Thank God that we were able to change that mentality. Poverty is a mentality. It doesn't have to be. We can change it. And although sometimes people have a lot of things, I see that they still have a poverty mentality, so that we can't get over that. And we need to get over that. We need to be able, but the only way we can do it is by teaching our kids.
Right.
Those are things that we teach. It's like a flower blossoming. This kid doesn't have, but these kids have to know that they have to want to learn. I read a thing one time that said, if you don't want to learn, nobody can teach you. And it's so true. We need to teach these kids that they need to want to
Yes.
learn. They need to want to have a future. Where? I don't know. I had a kid once in Henderson who, huge kid, huge all the way around. He was a 5th grader. He was way bigger than I was. He's sitting there with his feet on the table. And I said, Pedro, what do you want to do when you grow up? He said, I want to be a football player. I said, okay, that's a good thing to be. And you're big enough to do it. I said, so from here to being a football player, what do you have to do? He said, nothing. I have to study. I said, no, you have to be ready. You have to join football. You have to study to make good grades. You have to, and I was telling him all these things, and it's like, I go, I don't think I want to be a football player.
He changed his mind.
But the thing is, we have to encourage that, right?
Yes.
We have to make sure that if you want to be a football player, let me help you, teach you how to get there. There's other places that are going to help you out. But you got to have to want to do it and keep that thought until it's time for you to get into that. So those are the things that I want, not only my kids, but everybody to know that my success, my kids' success, depends on us, not anybody else. It's ours to it's a challenge, but we can do it. I didn't get very far because I didn't have an education, and I didn't think that I deserved it. That was the time. That was my time. It's not that time anymore. We have graduated into a different era, and we have to take advantage of that. And never forget, never ever forget that by God's grace, we can do it. We can do it, and we will do it.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. That's good insight for whoever's going to hear this interview. Thank you for sharing your
I
story.
hope so.
And I just want to mention one thing real quick, because I admire your humility with all this and being humble, because you have made great progress, and you are a pillar of this community. There's a lot of community members that know you. So
There is, huh?
there is. So you have made a difference in this community, and we appreciate you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to meet with me and share your story.
Oh, I always like to share my story.